Hi, welcome to the Baby Sleep Magic podcast. My name is Chantal, and in today's episode I'm going to be talking a little bit about when do babies typically drop a nap, or in other cases transition from one nap to the next. So look, as an example, what you might find is anywhere from around about 3 to 5 months, most babies have consolidated into 3 relatively regular naps by this stage. However, on some days it is not uncommon for your baby still to require 4 naps on some of those days, because sometimes they just aren't either very good at napping, or in some cases they might just have small naps because you've been on the go or they've had a bit of an off day. And if that's the case and all they've had is 20-30 minute naps here and there, in some cases it's still okay to have 4 naps on those days, and that's completely fine, as long as, to be honest, they're napping. That's probably the most important part, because what you don't want to happen by the end of the day, come bedtime, is that they've become overtired and they just can't cope, and then you're going to need to do everything and anything in your power to get them to sleep that night, and that usually entails rocking or feeding or bouncing or doing something which ideally you want to try and avoid, and sometimes by doing that is just ensuring they have an extra nap. So that's generally the beginning part of when, the beginning stages of when babies would typically drop a nap. So yeah, anywhere between 3 to 5 months, they would go from 4 naps down to 3. But like I said, on some days, it's totally okay for them to still have 4 naps. The next transition is anywhere between 6 and 8 months. And this tends to be one of the most trickier naps transition, because they generally go from, they do go from 3 naps down to 2. But what you'll probably find around the 6-month mark, anywhere between 6 to 8 months, is when they will fight you on that 3rd nap of the day. It's the hardest nap to get. It's the trickiest nap to get. They protest about it. It's really, really hard work. So my tip here for the last nap of the day is do it on the go. However you can get that nap, get it done. It's not going to throw out your routine. It's not going to create bad habits. It's really not going to do any damage. You just need to try and get that nap the best way you can. I usually suggest get it done in the pram or in a baby beyond, or even in the car, because what you're doing in this situation, you're using motion to your advantage. So therefore, they might not be happy about going in their room and going in their crib or their cot or their bassinet to go for a sleep, but you might be able to get them over the line by taking them for a walk or go for a drive in the car, because you're using motion to your advantage, and therefore they're still using their own skills in situations like this. So they're still putting themselves to sleep, but they're using motion to get them over the line. So that can be really, really helpful in this type of, grey area, I suppose, because if your little one between this age doesn't get that 3rd nap, chances are you're going to have a really rough afternoon. They probably won't eat dinner, or they won't eat much. They'll probably cry the whole time through bath time, and then they'll go to bed probably quite hungry, if not early, and then wake up either frequently through the night to make up for the calories, or even frequently or early rising because they went to bed overtired to begin with. So it is hard and challenging, but like I said, try to get that 3rd nap in the best way you can. Generally speaking, the 3rd nap is always the shortest, but in saying that, if Bub for that particular day has had 2 shorter naps, then that 3rd nap can be a longer nap. That just means your whole day has kind of been bumped up a little bit, or you've just watched your wake window, because Bubs around this age is really only capable of staying awake between 2.5 maximum to 3 hours max. So if they only sleep for about 30 to 45 minutes for their first nap of the day, then your whole day gets adjusted and bumped up a little bit. So therefore that last nap of the day potentially might even start at around 2 o'clock, and then that one could actually be a cracker, because if you happen to be at home and they happen to fall asleep in the cot, then that nap could be a really good one. But generally speaking, if you're at home or out, usually the 2 first naps of the day are generally better, and the afternoon nap is just the cat nap in the afternoon, because babies at this age know the difference between night and day. They usually get that and understand that anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks of age. So they know the afternoon is coming, they know it's nighttime approaching, and they are getting cranky, they're getting irritable, and they're just getting over the day. So however you can get that 3rd nap is definitely going to be better to get anything than nothing. The next transition that you'll find is anywhere between 14 to 18 months, where they go from 2 naps down to 1. This is usually the most trickiest transition because they fight you so much on that nap, or the second nap, but they're just not capable of having such a long wake window of time to be awake. So, and this is where the stimulation level generally has to step up, because by this age they're usually on their feet, they're very active, they're running around, they're stimulated, they want to climb, they want to do everything. They're learning so much, and staying at home now just playing on the floor or playing with some toys usually isn't enough. So this is where getting them out, getting them really active and stimulant and busy and active is definitely going to help and work to your advantage when it comes to nap time. Usually what I suggest in this transition is try to cap the first nap to be anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes at the most, in the instance that you are experiencing difficulties with nap time. If you are not experiencing difficulties with nap time, then don't change a thing. Just wait for those signs to start flagging, and then you can obviously address it when you need to. But if you are really struggling with this transition, my advice to begin with is to cap the first nap. So, and the reason I say cap the first nap is because what you don't want your toddler now to be sleeping for an hour and a half to 2 hours for their very first nap, because there's only so many Z's in their day that they need. And at this age, they really only need 2 to 2.5 hours maximum. And if they do a chunk of that at the beginning of the day, then the chances are they're going to really fight you on the second nap, and you might not even get a second nap at all because they've fought you so much. And that's obviously what you don't want, because then you're going to have a really tired, cranky toddler on your hands come 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's when they probably want a nap, but it's too close to bedtime and you're caught in this catch-22. What do you do? So in situations like that, like I said, I would cap the first nap at 30 to 45 minutes at maximum. And when I say cap it and wake them up, don't go in there and just wake them up and shake them. Just open the blinds, open the door, turn the white noise off, and just make some household noise. And that should help stir them up at that sleep cycle. When they're awake, get them up, and this is your opportunity to get out, get some fresh air if you can, and really make the most of active playtime. Get them busy, get them having fun, get them stimulated, get them playing, just wear them out. And obviously in between all that, lots of food. Snacks, lunch in between that time, morning tea, milk if they're interested as well, and get them really exhausted. So then when it is genuinely their next nap time after lunch, they're going to be so exhausted and the time's right that they will actually then give you a nap and not fight you on it, because they only had a power nap earlier in the morning. So, and then, you know, in situations like this, when they're still on that 2 naps, then bedtime would probably be a little bit later. So it might be anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30, depending on when they wake from their second nap of the day. You don't necessarily have to do bedtime at the exact same time every day, because if you try to put them down too early and what they used to do, they might protest because they're just not quite ready. They might need an extra 15, 20 minutes, or in some cases a good half an hour or even longer. So yeah, it's definitely about working on their going off their last nap of the day. And then look, the next transition usually is anywhere between 3 to 4 years of age. The later you can push it, the better. But some babies between the age of 3.5, 4 will really fight you on their day nap altogether. And look, if this is the case, what I suggest is still insist on some type of quiet time, I suppose, or wind down time. What I used to do with my boys when they were at the age where they just didn't want to nap anymore, or it was just causing more issues than what it was worth, I would still get them to go in their room. The rules were they went in their room. The room was dark. I put like some type of night light on for them in there, and I gave them books on their bed, or a little puzzle, or some type of toy, or some type of something. And I had like a timer set. So, and whether it was half an hour or 45 minutes, or on some days even an hour. And in some cases, Noah, my older boy, he was a lot happier to go to sleep. He would play for 15, 20 minutes and then he would just fall asleep. Cruz, on the other hand, after 45 minutes, he'd start moaning and want to come out and play again. So at least that gave me a bit of my time, but also more importantly, gave them some downtime, because they just need they might not necessarily need to go to sleep, but they just need to have a bit of a chill time. And that doesn't need to be around 12 or 1 o'clock. It can be probably more like, 2:30, 3:30 in the afternoon. If they do doze off at that time of the afternoon, though, you just want to make sure they're not going to be sleeping for much longer than about 20, 30 minutes, because that will affect nighttime and going to bed at night. So on the other hand, if you do have a little one, a toddler that is loving their sleep, or preschooler that is loving their naps, but you might be finding early rising becoming an issue, that might be the reason early rising is the issue, is because of their day naps. So usually the first thing I would suggest in a situation like this is to cap their day nap. So this is obviously only for preschoolers, anywhere from the age of 2.5 to 4 plus. If they're experiencing either night wakings or early rising, is to cut back their day sleep to probably anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour and a half. So depending on where you're currently at, if you're currently letting your preschooler sleep for 2 hours, then just cut it back to an hour and a half to see if you get any improvement. If you get no improvement over 5 or 7 days, then cut it back again to an hour. If you're still not getting much improvement, then you could always go back to 45 minutes. But bearing in mind, you want to ensure that if they're sleeping for 2 hours during the day, there's probably a need for it as well. So there's a bit of a fine line. You just need to gauge on obviously what works and what's working. But that's pretty much wraps it up with bubbas from the age of 3 months through to 4 years of age, and how their naps can transition. So look, the most important thing to remember is in times like this, and if you're really fighting it, or they're really fighting it, the best advice that I can give is just offer some downtime, and especially in those transitional stages where they really fight you, and they don't necessarily, as an example, the 3 to 5 month mark where they just fight that 4th nap. And even that 3rd nap, sometimes it's just best to give them downtime. You can't force your baby to sleep, but you can offer some downtime. And it might not be worth putting them in their dark room in their cot, because they're just going to cry and cry and cry, work themselves up and make themselves even more exhausted, and you don't even get a nap anyway. So in situations like that, you're better off just giving them some downtime. That might be just going for a walk in the pram, covering the hood over, putting something over the front so they can't see too much out, give them their little comforter, put on some white noise and just walk. And in some cases, especially the older they get, they probably won't doze off because they're just not quite needing it anymore. But that's still getting a little bit of downtime that they much need, because as soon as you get home after that downtime, it's fast track to everything. Fast track dinner, fast track bath, fast track bed. But in doing that, because you've had that downtime, a little bit of luck, hopefully they've got enough energy and stamina to enjoy their meal, finish it, have a bath without crying, and go to bed without too much fuss, because they did get some downtime. So it's not always about sleep. In some cases, it's just about being a little bit clever in some ways on how you can achieve some downtime for your little one without having to always put them in their cot and thinking that's always the answer. It doesn't have to be like that all the time. And another example of what I did with my boys in situations like this, especially between that 4 to 6, 7 month mark, they both dropped their 3rd nap quite early, but I found it very difficult to try and get them over the line in those ages. So what I used to do, I used to put them in the pram, and I used to walk up and down the hallway in the pram, and I even put a broomstick on the floor, and it would just go over the broomstick like that, boom, 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 and that's what got them over the line. In some cases they had a nap, but in some cases they didn't, and they still had some downtime. So look, I hope that helps. It gives you a bit of an overview and understanding on transitioning naps, dropping naps, how to manage naps in these tricky times. And yeah, thanks again for listening. If you do find this information helpful, please feel free to share it with another mum or a friend. The more exposure this information gets to, obviously the more parents and mums we can help. And also we have all this information and more inside the Baby Sleep Magic app, which is just launched in December 2020. So it's quite new, but we're very excited, and it has all this in there, not just about transitioning from naps, but it has information on sleeping and settling. It has 11 different alternate options for settling your baby to sleep. It has food guides and sleep guides, and it has everything you need basically for your little one, whether it's newborn or you've got a 4-year-old. So thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next podcast.